brought to you by Infineon. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Jouar, and today is Wednesday, October 25th. I'm here at Infineon headquarters in Silicon Valley for October Tech, which is their big tech conference every year. And I've got Adrian Mikolajczak here with me and Kim Lee as well to talk about what we're affectionately calling D&D now.
Yes.
For those of you who are playing D&D, that's not the same thing. We're talking about decarbonization and digitalization. So folks, I did a podcast last year at the October Tech event, and I'm kind of curious, like, what's changed in a year? I know you guys are working really hard on these two really important things that are going to make a huge difference for the industries we're in, for consumers, for everyday life.
So I think maybe a little bit about October Tech, and then I answer your question, what's changed, because they're very linked. So this year, especially at October Tech, the focus has really been on showing off the new stuff we're doing and the new breakthroughs we're making, and really inviting our customers to come in and talk to us about what they need next. And so it's very much an outreach, both of, again, a show and tell where we're showing, and also where our customers are giving us feedback for what they need. Now, having said that, Kim, we have,
68 plus.
68 demos.
Wow.
Yes.
68 demos of new technology, things that haven't been actually shown before. And these are all pushing the envelope. So one of the rules when we set up October Tech, it's like, if you can see it on the web, it doesn't belong in October Tech. I can't promise that everything fits that criteria, but that's the general approach.
So that being said, folks, especially those of you watching on the Patreon channel, watching the video version of the podcast, which you can get on Patreon, as I just mentioned, we're going to actually have a discussion with some content about these demos for next week's show. So check that out. This is essentially a two-part Infineon mini segment thing. And so we'll have some demos next week, but we're going to talk to you this week about, just tease you a little bit. So, Kim, where do you think the industry has managed to go in the last year in general? And where do you think Infineon in particular has kind of like hit the spot?
Yeah, I think the awareness of how we live in this planet is getting a lot of notoriety, right? It's a lot of awareness on, global warming, right? And how do we address that from electronics and a semiconductor standpoint is trying to be able to equip our customers, the industry in general, with ways and innovations that allow us to help with the whole decarbonization of the climate. And this is kind of what we're doing. It is one of our main charters.
Yeah. And so, Adrian, do you feel like the consumers and in general, even your customers are becoming more aware? Are they going along with this? I mean, obviously it's in their best interest, but they might not really get there yet. You might have to prod them around a little bit to get going. I don't know. How has it been?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at what we're doing, let's go one level deeper. So let's not say decarbonization, digitalization, but let's see, what does that mean and what's Infineon doing? Like, if you look at efficiency, that is a key piece of decarbonization, right? And decarbonization was a metric for efficiency. And if you look at, for example, in Sri's keynote today, he showed how over history on solar inverters, we've gone from something that was maybe 97% efficient and 90 watts per kilogram. So huge box, down to something very small that's 3,000 watts per kilogram. So it's like a 30x size reduction. And from 97% to 99% efficient.
Yeah.
So that is eliminating waste by 2/3 and bringing down that size. So in some ways, we're not trying to convince people. We're just doing our thing.
Right.
And it's making a huge impact.
So what you're basically saying is that you don't really need to prod them along because it just makes, it's so obvious, the change. And it also makes, as soon as they see it, it makes business sense for them. And for consumers, it's a net win, right? Say you're outfitting your camper with solar power. Now you can have a box, this big instead of a box that big for that 200 watt panels you might have on the roof, right?
Exactly.
Same with your inverters, right?
30x smaller, not just this.
No, I realize that, but I'm just saying, like, compared to, like, say 10 years ago, like, we're not comparing to 100 years here, right? But I think, for the average consumer that can't afford, like, a state-of-the-art system, it's going to be still a major, major improvement. And, Infineon obviously makes chips and makes semiconductors that are in all kinds of equipment. A lot of it is automotive, which obviously my audience is really interested in. But the stuff you're just talking about, anything that's power electronics, whether it be solar, inverters that, are used for motors, whatever, all that stuff uses your technology. You also do Wi-Fi, you do radios, you do a whole bunch of stuff that touches the consumer electronics segment. So, obviously, your customers are businesses, but what does it mean for the average consumer, Kim? This example of the solar inverter is a good one, but what are the things that they're going to see benefits that trickle down from the work that Infineon is doing with its customers, the businesses?
Basically, I mean, when we have a vision for this, we look at what the end consumer is going to want to use or what they want to see. So basically, it's a lot of lower power, more efficiency, lower cost, lower size. All those kind of bundled into here's a solution that we can provide for you that does what you want it to do, not just today, but also for tomorrow as well. And this is why we have a lot of which you saw today with the demos that we have, a lot of innovation and a lot of complexity within those innovations, not just with semiconductors themselves, but we're also providing solutions that are
right.
enabling the semiconductors, putting our own intelligence in there from software algorithms that go into our MCUs that enable.
Right. And that's a big part of what we talked about last year as well, is that you're not just doing semiconductors, you're doing full solutions, and the software is becoming a bigger and bigger part of that, right?
Yes, it is.
I remember the Amazon rainforest sensor stuff, that was a big deal and is still a big deal. And how, for that, it was an entire software solution along with the hardware that was needed. So, obviously, I think everybody can relate. Software is kind of ruling the world in many ways, right? Our cars now, electric cars feel different with different software. Our phones, our, personal tech is obviously very much affected by software experience. Yeah. And so, but what you don't see, what none of us really think about when we're using a piece of equipment is all the microcode, all the firmware, all the stuff at the low level, all, like that inverter that's driving the motor in your EV has to be driven by software that you'll never touch. But you'll feel it, you'll know how it feels, you'll know how the car regens, you'll know how the car brakes, you'll know how the car accelerates because of the software in it.
Although, being from a hardware company, in a sense,
I was going to say, being a hardware guy, yeah.
I will, push that. I think there's a ton of innovation going on in the hardware side, right? And so
I'm not suggesting there is.
I know. But I got to put in my
plug. My background's hardware as well, so just don't worry.
Fair enough. But I think if you look at, for example, even communication, right? Some of the stuff we are showing at the show is new longer range Wi-Fi, lower power Wi-Fi. These kinds of things, longer range Bluetooth. And those are some of that is firmware, but those are fundamental building blocks. The inverter stuff I was talking about, our partners who made those inverters clearly have a lot to offer in that section. But from our point of view, it's the new, device level switches that we're offering that are partially enabling those moves.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I'd like to claim totally enabling, but I know that, like I said, our friends.
From a hardware standpoint, bringing hardware guys is like, software doesn't exist unless hardware is there to enable it.
Absolutely.
And this is the thing I have with my son. My son's a software guy, so we always have this banter. It goes, software is better, and we need software to make things more intelligent. And this is true. And this is the investment that Infineon is making for a lot of our capabilities is how can we make power more efficient? How can we make sensors more efficient? How can we make automotive safety more efficient? This is enabling, with the microcontroller technologies, with the whole bundle that we provide, we're able to make the solution more intelligent.
Yeah, and I think as someone who, as I said, my background is in hardware, but I worked in software for a long time. I think by providing that software on top of the foundational hardware, you're making it easy for your customers to implement this stuff, and that really fits into the decarbonization and in digitalization part because it's great to have the best gear in the world, but if you can't really use it, you're not going anywhere. And today, I worked in video games for a long time. I worked with APIs. If the APIs weren't good, you weren't going to get the features in your game. It wasn't going to work, right? I worked on the APIs, so I know this. And so, what I'm excited about is, what people don't understand is, like a chip and an inverter that's driving a motor, right? It's any piece of technology you have, any hardware you have in your system is going to draw some energy. the more efficient that hardware is going to be, the better for the environment. The smaller that hardware is to be, the better for the environment, because the manufacturing takes less resources, the shipping takes less resources, the packaging takes less resources, right? So all of this is kind of works together, right? It's not just one piece of the equation.
Exactly.
And the same with the software. You can have the greatest software in the world, but if it consumes too much power, like we have a lot of that with, whether it be AI right now or, crypto mining, it takes up way too much energy, right? So we need to improve on that too. So I think this is what I'm personally very excited about talking to companies like Infineon, is not just to look at, we want to make the world a better place, but more like look at how exponentially those tiny little changes add up in the end.
So we there was a session this morning by Christian Profel, who's one of our key sustainability heads came all the way from Munich to talk about it. But one of his comments is, okay, we've got Infineon that's doing what it's doing, but our products, the calculation that his team ran, if our products are implemented across the globe, that is, he says, about 100 million tons of CO2 reduction.
Wow.
Yeah, I hope I got that quote right. But it's huge. And, you compare that to like even, Infineon's footprint that's in, I think, 3 million or so like that, right? It's a huge wake. So what we do has a big impact.
Yeah. And I think, Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, it's also the fact that, basically you're just reducing at so many levels because you touch so many things at Infineon, right? Like a lot of people don't realize a lot of IoT systems are run by Infineon chipsets. Obviously the whole mobility side of things. We talked about EVs already. But solar, power distribution.
Just simple consumer devices from your mobile platforms, like phones, laptops, tablets, to something that enables better security in the home, smart homes, smart buildings.
All the IoT stuff, whether it be industrial or at home use, making your home more efficient especially when you're not around is a big deal right now. People are realizing, to, a lot of businesses, it's like, oh, look, we're saving money. To a lot of customers, consumers, it's like, oh, look, my electrical bill is much lower. Win. But at the same time, it means the grid isn't as taxed. It means, other companies, other businesses, other individuals can benefit by not having outages or whatever, right?
I always like to put myself in the shoes of our customers. As a consumer, what do I want, right? I look at the first generation mobile phone versus what we have now. So much more capability, so much. But this is what consumers like us that are tech savvy or even not tech savvy want. They want better convenience for their lives in order to do that. But in order to put all this stuff in, it's going to consume more power. It's going to get bigger. It's going to cost more, right? How do we reduce all three of those things? And that's the innovation that we do. We're doing things that are going to reduce power to make those devices consume less power, make it more intelligent, make it smaller, make it less costly, right? And these are the things that we're striving for in doing. And look at the generations of phones we have right now, which are able to do that and still maintain a week's worth of battery life, which is amazing.
Yeah. Honestly, efficiency, you can tell that the industry as a whole has really been focusing on efficiency, and of course, there's all these great side effects, whether it's the user experience, as you mentioned, but also the, decarbonization and digitalization are bringing that efficiency to the table. So let's talk about another example that we're going to show you in more detail in the next segment next week. And that's the stethoscope that you have. Tell us really quickly about sensors, because that's another big part of your business.
Yeah, sensors are a big part. They basically take real world information and take it into a digitized world where you can, then manipulate it to do what you want. Just optical camera, for example, is a very good example of a sensor that basically takes visual data and now with computer vision techniques and so forth, you can identify images, items on a camera, so you can say, okay, this is a person, this is a car, this is something else that you might want to know more about. This is being predominantly done in the automotive safety world, for example, understanding where, okay, I got a pedestrian in the street, I got a bicycle moving, I have a car moving. I need to understand those dynamics in order to make intelligent decisions about my braking, my acceleration, and so forth in the car. Very similarly with smart homes, being able to have a smarter sensor that is able to determine what the security perimeters around your houses.
Oh,
like
even
intruders,
temperature,
whatever.
better temperature sensing is really hard in the home right now.
Yeah,
and I mean, we talked about the rainforest fire monitoring stuff. It's like microphones, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
hear the chainsaws, basically. So I mean, it goes from like MEMS mics to like cameras for ADAS in cars. I mean, you do it all, right?
But actually, going to where Kim was going on just these sensors and advanced sensors, if you look inside the car and mobility and trying to get to a car that's self-driving, these microphones, they're evolving every day.
Oh yeah,
And they're getting better and better, right? And so now I think we're demoing this also at the show, but there is a microphone setup that's designed for external environment that now can sit on the outside of a car and listen. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but the environment's quite harsh. You do have to be able to survive that.
Yeah.
And it's something that we take for granted. You hear a siren in the distance and you obviously react.
And this is, exactly. And this is where the software and hardware have to combine to make, you can do, there's always these techniques of echo cancellation, noise cancellation, all that, but you have to do it on a microphone that's able to detect really minute
that's
sound.
right. Very sensitive.
And we have our demo basically is very simple. It's combining both the superior MEMS technology we have with the microphones with DSP technology that we can use that basically listens for EMS sirens outside so that it can detect.
I actually wrote a story for Tech Radar, since I write a lot of automotive content for them, about Drive Pilot, Mercedes level 3 implementation, which has a mic specifically in the back of the car for detecting sirens.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And then finding its direction.
We'll be surprised if it's an Infineon thing. Let's wrap up for today and for this week and go into talking about some examples next week. Shall we?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being on the show, folks. I appreciate it. I hope everybody stays tuned for next week's segment because we're going to talk about the demos we saw at the Infineon October Tech event. All right, folks, now that we've talked about D&D with Infineon, I've got a bunch of folks here poolside. So we all agreed at some point that maybe it's just a me thing, but we all agreed at some point we should do a podcast poolside. This is our attempt to do that. So bear with us with audio quality and other interruptions, but we're here at Snapdragon Summit in Maui, and most of it is behind us now, and I think I want to kind of get your feel for all the announcements. And Mr. Fisher here has got a new toy to show off.
I sure do.
And there's also a multi-folding bracelet phone that's reappeared after 6 years of hiatus.
Heard about that.
And so what's your general take, everyone here, on the whole thing?
I will say this. I think it's a kind of a difficult show to cover if mostly what you do is consumer tech, because everything announced here is at least 6 months from being included in a consumer product that can be purchased.
Yeah.
So it's all a matter. It's an exercise in imagination.
Except
for Xiaomi.
Xiaomi.
They just announced their phone today, but nobody cares.
Oh yeah. Okay. Got it.
Xiaomi didn't even think that we deserved a press release. We didn't even get a press release for
They
the
didn't
phone.
reach out to us, did they?
No, they didn't tell us that an announcement was coming, and it was announced China only as of right now.
So there you go.
Exactly.
So does it matter?
Good. Congratulations.
It does matter, not for us in Europe or North America right now.
Well, I feel like since we're talking about this, I find really weird is I'm literally right now, it's in my pocket, in my pants, in my room, reviewing the Xiaomi 13T Pro, which launched early October.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that review for Elena at Geekspin, and I'm like, wait, now there's a better phone. Like, I'm reviewing a phone that's essentially
The next generation.
passe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yet I have the Pro, and notice they never mention anything about a Pro on their Xiaomi 14. So
They will have
They will
a
have
Pro and an Ultra come MWC or CES timing of this.
So the
next
bottom
year.
line is, if you're not living in North America, you should expect to see a 14 and a 14 Pro soon. And if you're in China, you can get the 14 probably starting today.
Mark your calendars.
Mark
Until
your
they
calendar.
until they seed foldables with regularity to people who are interested in them. I'm not interested in talking about Xiaomi.
Are you interested in foldables? We haven't noticed.
Weird.
No, but like to back up what Michael was saying, it's like we have these chipsets announced, and it's usually 3, 6, sometimes 9 months until we see the commercial version of what these products are actually going to enable.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, the numbers we've seen are incredible. We're going to see some great performance in mobile devices and compute devices as well, which I know Rich is excited to talk about.
Yeah, we were just
wanna
saying that
talk
this is
about
the-
that a lot.
This is the
actually.
most exciting Snapdragon Summit
for you.
For compute.
in years.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say objectively so. For
Objectively
anybody.
so.
I think that if the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 took the center stage like it normally would, it would have been a much more boring show.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think
disagree. Yeah.
compute was the superstar this
Yeah.
It was
Well, they had
so
something
much
to show.
so that like, they had a 2-hour keynote, and at 1 hour and 33 minutes, I turned to the person next to me and I said, "Are they going to announce the 8 Gen 3?" Because they had spent an hour and 33 minutes talking about the compute chip, which rightfully so. I think it's going to be a bigger deal, so much bigger deal than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, just because of the changes it's bringing to the compute segment.
It's a bigger deal for Qualcomm. There's so little growth for them left in mobile. It's like they're here, the ceiling's here. As far as compute goes, they don't need the segment to grow. They just need to displace Intel.
Yeah.
So,
there's
Rich,
so much room
I
there.
see two problems here, right? Obviously, we haven't played with the devices. There's some prototypes you're going to benchmark tomorrow, whatever. But the bottom line
still
is
won't be able to
the
talk.
numbers they gave us are very impressive. I
Yes.
want to believe them because, Qualcomm.
We would all like to believe them.
No, Qualcomm Qualcomm does good hardware. The question is, you can't just have good hardware. We have that, where Apple shines is that vertical integration. In this case, we need Microsoft in the game. We need the manufacturers of laptops in the game. So
Microsoft's
what's
in
your
it.
take? You think
Microsoft's
they're really
definitely
in
in
it
it.
because they weren't in it last time.
Yeah, they're really but the issue is when they put these numbers out there, they're assuming that you're using native ARM64 apps, right? Which means you're
Already,
not running Google Chrome.
Which
They have software
everybody
which
is.
Everybody is.
Everybody
Right?
is.
Now, so that's the big question: is how many laptops have I reviewed where this is a great product as long as you're willing to use it.
But I was thinking before, like the numbers here are so high versus what we've gotten before from Qualcomm with their ARM chipsets for Windows, where it was a step behind the competition. And they came out showing these benchmark numbers, and we still need to verify all of these numbers, of course. But it's one of those things where they are ahead, even ahead of where Apple is right now with the M2 chip, based off of their numbers. Based off of their numbers. Again, like, we need to verify this.
Yeah.
But the question is, like, is that enough, or do we actually need another catalyst? Is performance really the only issue, or do we actually need apps
we
that
need
are
apps.
optimized for this platform?
Not just apps, but hardware. Like, I found myself
Yeah.
crying out during the thing and be like, yes, the chip could be a total hot rod, and I'm stoked if it is. But
sexy enough hardware to-
Unless there is a laptop that you can point at and be like, well, that's unlike any of the gray, boring boxes I can get at Best Buy. And the one time we saw this was a couple years ago at the Snapdragon Summit, where Microsoft had a bunch of Surface Pro X's here.
Yeah.
And it was a thinner, lighter version of the Surface that had built-in connectivity. It
I
was
still
running
have one of
845
those.
or something like that.
I love it.
And it was lovely.
we
Or
need
855.
a Halo
the
Dell
SQ1?
XPS
Was it SQ1?
for
Yeah.
ARM.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
that's the thing. Like I'm
We
always
need a Halo device.
energized when I can see things that normal people can be made to care about, and
But they can't show us that because that's like
not
you were
their
talking
job.
about, when
No,
you're a
but-
chip maker, how can you make these
But
things
here's
exciting?
the thing: now you're parceling out the excitement right now, right? Because we've already you've kind of shot your thing on the chip already, and then you're gonna have to wait for a Surface event for Microsoft to roll out something that's less worthy on the hardware. Wouldn't it be cool if just once they were like, "Hey, welcome to the Snapdragon Summit. We've got Microsoft here, not on a
On
video
stage.
call, not another Nadella conversation that goes on for 10 minutes, tells you nothing. We're going to actually do a hardware release that takes over. I want that desperately for Windows.
Well, they're not going to do a hardware release here. Just
No.
like Samsung would never do a hardware release
Correct.
here.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants their own smart. Everyone wants their
Xiaomi
own
did a
spotlight.
hardware release. So,
Well, Xiaomi did. Honor, right? Honor.
Honor took the stage and kind of like sabotaged the keynote today.
It's not totally
That's amazing.
like without precedent. The Surface Pro X was very much a
No, Surface Pro X was
led thing.
I
it
just
was
want to
launched at
say,
an event.
by the way, that George Zhao, the CEO of Honor, blew my mind by not reading a teleprompter today.
I noticed that today too. I
Did he not?
I
No.
looked over at Tom, the tech chap, and I was like, I looked at the screen, so I was like, he's going off of slides. He's not going off of a teleprompter.
That
And
is
then we checked, and
quite
we're like,
amazing.
he's actually going way off script because he wasn't supposed to talk about any of that.
Is that why they went 20 minutes over?
Correct.
Magic
This is why the
6,
whole day
though.
was rescheduled.
We have a what is it called? Honor Magic 6 announced.
Oh,
Essentially.
it's about
That's
as exciting
another
as the
phone.
Xiaomi.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, the problem is that look, the 14 Pro could be exciting because it might have the 1-inch sensor or the stacked, whatever it's called, the lithium sensor this
Oh,
year.
the stacked
right?
Sony. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a potential, right?
But it doesn't fold.
It doesn't fold. Yeah,
That's right.
Fisher doesn't care because it doesn't fold.
it doesn't fold. Okay, so what is the general take on the, do you think the numbers they give us for this X Elite are like, I mean, the graphs are a little weird because like 1% was showing up as 10% on the graph, and like,
No, the numbers were real,
The numbers were right, but
I'm sure they were.
how they were showing them was probably a little bit awkward.
of course. But and you also have to remember that when you say they're showing themselves as ahead, that by the time this ships, everybody else is going to be a generation ahead of where they are now.
Correct.
Intel
Yeah.
14th gen is going to be out. Apple M3 is going to be out. AMD is going to have something, which
Yeah.
no one's really talking about right now.
And Nvidia is going to be much closer to releasing their own.
They'll be closer. Yeah, they're still far out.
Yeah.
Right. So,
But I think they'll be within shooting range of where everybody else will be with their next generation. And I think
Yeah.
the main thing was same performance, but extremely lower power consumption, which I think with smartphones, we've gotten to the point of every phone gives you all day battery life. It's no longer a
pretty
part
much.
of the conversation anymore.
Right.
But with laptops, especially Intel powered laptops right now, it's still, hey, they tell me I should get all day battery life, but when I'm really using it, I get 4 hours of battery life if I'm lucky. If I'm editing
Yeah.
video,
Right.
it's still 2 hours.
and my
of
battery drains while it's in my bag.
Correct. It doesn't actually. That's a
so
Windows
annoying.
thing. It doesn't actually turn
but that's
off.
what I'm saying, right? So
oh, it's an Intel. Right?
we have the chip. Conceivably, we could get great hardware. Like, I trust that one of these OEMs can make a cool looking laptop. They've done it on Intel. Like myself, I'm a huge fan of that Lenovo Yoga Book i9 or whatever, 9i, right?
Yep.
Like, I still use it.
Yeah, me too.
It's great. It's
lovely.
So my point is, I know the hardware can be there. The big question mark to you, and you think it can be done this time, is the software. But we need emulation. Are we going to
Emulation.
emulate?
Yes.
Is it going to work? Because emulation on M chips works almost as fast as non-emulation.
So that what I saw was that emulation will still be slower, but it will not be noticeably slower and give you the better experience, right? Like,
I think there's going to be news about that next
Okay.
year.
Okay.
I think there's going to be Windows news about improved emulation.
so you think
next
they're going to
year.
deliver on the software, and we're going to have a relatively
they are.
well-integrated vertical solution from multiple OEMs because of it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, all the OEMs are on board, right? Which is a rare thing for them to talk
Yeah,
about.
we
Every
had them all on the screen there.
right. So,
that
like
was
every
cool.
generation, it's like they announce this new chip, and there's 2, maybe 3 devices that
everybody
come
was
out.
on that list.
Everybody was
essentially.
on the lists. HP, Lenovo, and Dell are all committed. Microsoft's committed.
So for those of you listening who have no context of this, we are in a pool. All of us except for Christian, who don't hardly has his legs in the pool, and Michael keeps doing a head cam of shooting us with the Meta Ray-Ban glasses.
Correct.
And so, for those of you watching on Patreon right now, you get to experience all that. But for those listening, maybe you check out the Patreon, patreon.com, and see if you want to get the video tier and pay a little bit to get it early and get us to see us at the beach. Well, the beach is
Maybe
right
there'll
there.
be a video sample of what Fisher's shooting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to speak to my licensing people about it.
Boy, it's getting complicated, I got it.
But you're liking these glasses because they're a foldable, right?
Yeah, they have double hinges.
It's a double hinged foldable.
So these genuinely were a very pleasant surprise to me because I arrived here not knowing what my coverage plan was going to be for the summit because, as we
Right.
said, it's difficult. And these are powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon AR1 Gen 1 platform,
wow.
which was announced in
You actually
September.
managed to not screw that up.
I learned a lot about it before we came on the air.
That's amazing.
What is nice is that They look, I don't know. I'm not going to say, Rich, you're closest to me. You can probably tell me if I look like a nerd. I kind of look nerdy, don't I?
I don't think they look nerdy. I've been looking at, because they gave them all the Snapdragon insiders. I've been looking at them all day, and I think they look cool.
It's really hard to tell that they're not.
Yeah.
Just not, you have
They
to
look
look
like
pretty
glasses.
close.
I have noticed that
Yeah.
in talking to normal people, like
Yeah.
they don't ask me like they did back in the days of Snapchat
Yeah.
spectacles,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, what is this? Is that a camera?
Yeah.
So they have a notification light. And this, of course, is a second generation product for them. I didn't get to play with the first gen, but it is a wonderful tool so far. It not only has a built-in camera, which is 12 megapixels and ultra wide.
It's much better than the first, that 5 megapixel
So I've-
stuff. The
so
quality
heard,
apparently looks super great.
The quality is lovely. I've been taking some photos, and we'll talk a little bit. I would like, before we go, to talk about the summit
we can
itself.
talk
but
about
we'll
all of
loop
that.
back on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm 2 days in, and I'm so impressed by these that it's kind of become a cliche for a reviewer or creator to say, like, I might keep these. These might stay on my face. But they might, because I'm really enjoying, and we should mention that everyone talks about the camera, but they also they act like those
There's
Bose sunglasses because
speakers.
they've got the speakers
and they
in
have
there.
incredibly good mics.
Very good mics. I
Which
had a
is-
45-minute phone call, and in the breeze.
But not like that,
background noise and
like,
the
for the
fountains,
actual
it's great.
video recording. So that's the reason I got excited
microphones, right?
is because, Victoria at The Verge
Yes.
reviewed them.
Just reviewed them recently.
with Rebecca, right?
Yes.
And they were just like really into them. And
I couldn't believe the
and
title
did you
they had
hear the
for their
sound
article.
quality on the recordings? Like I'm like, you can do ASMR on this, no problem.
I didn't, but I'm not surprised because I mean,
And
it's-
POV is always fun.
and
POV is always amazing.
I did POV on Google Glass because I was a glass hole. I still have them.
Yes.
And that was amazing. I did POV car drives before HDR video, though, so it was a little hard.
I was just recording a video today for Instagram, and I was trying to get with my regular camera, get like a POV down shot of a device, and I was like, if I had I actually have these. They're in the box. I haven't unboxed them yet, and I was like, I just need the POV shot of me looking down.
And they're perfect for that.
It would be perfect for
Can
that.
I ask?
Yeah.
See, I will say this. I think the one thing that is not correctable about these that I don't like is that they've decided on a vertical orientation for the sensor,
Oh,
right? So when you're filming or shooting, it's going to be
Right.
a slightly vertical crop, which makes sense for social. It makes sense
Yeah,
for
yeah.
all this stuff. But for somebody who wants to do POV shots for a YouTube video,
Yeah. Yeah.
See, that would have been perfect for me. I didn't know that. That would have been perfect for me because it was for a reel for Instagram.
But you can
it would
only-
even better for
the
me.
finest.
you can
content.
only record 1 minute, so it makes sense that it's vertical video. Are they IP
It does make
rated
sense.
at
They're
all?
IPX4.
Nice.
I'm going to take them down the water slide. I'm going to challenge the IPX4 rating because of my experience.
Flash.
Oh boy.
Yeah, seeing the OnePlus Open tested almost to destruction, I'm very confident in the IPX4 rating. So we'll see. But
Usually
good time.
with IPX4, as long as you're not keeping it underwater for more than 10 seconds,
No,
like
'cause
giving
I watched-
water a
I
chance
watched
to
that OnePlus
soak in.
Open just get blasted
with
fire
water.
hosed with water, and it's fine.
As long as you're not swimming underwater for...
Right, I'm gonna get right above the surface on the other side
You're
of that
good.
slide.
You're good. Give it a splash.
So Christian, was there anything that stood out for you in the X Elite? I'm finding it interesting that the naming is like there's no numbers in there.
Yeah,
and
that is
apparently
strange.
from the Q&A we just did.
it would have been like an X Elite Gen 1.
Yeah,
it
probably.
They're going to call it
One
Gen 2
Gen
next.
one?
They're going to call it Gen 2
but
with
it
the
can
next gen.
scale
I
too
asked
from
them,
like
but
entry level lightweight.
it's like they forgot to call it Gen 1 or something.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they have a
it's crazy.
strategy of
Yeah.
different tiers at this point. Like with Snapdragon, we have all the different tiers. We have the 5 series, the 7 series, the 8 series. Like there's the different tiers, and we don't have that right now because this is a complete new platform.
Well, it's a new
right?
tier.
Yeah.
Right? So there's going to continue to be an 8 series compute chip. and
really?
7
They're
series,
still
yeah.
going to continue that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, weird.
Oh, really?
Which makes it a little
Interesting.
bit more confusing then.
Surely that'll be
Little bit.
discontinued
Right?
after they do the X Max and the X Pro and the X,
Ultra?
yeah, X Ultra.
Well,
Yeah.
what is interesting
The
though,
Max
is-
Ultra.
What's better, the Ultra or the Elite?
yeah, yeah.
but here's what's interesting. They said there's only one chip and it can do everything from lightweight MacBook Air style stuff to workstation gaming laptop type
It can't,
stuff.
yes, but it will be expensive.
Yeah,
Right,
let's
you're
be
not going to
clear.
put this in a Chromebook.
This is not going to be in a $300 Chromebook. This is going to be in a $1,000 Windows PC,
Yeah.
or a $1,000 Chromebook. Like
Okay.
the chipset itself is probably going to be at least $200 to $300.
Oh, no, this is only for Windows.
They're
They
not.
did say that
Oh, yeah.
Windows laptops it is made for. They kind of mentioned during the Q&A today that someone could make a desktop with it, like a 24-inch iMac, if they really wanted to. But this is for Windows laptops.
Are you excited about it in general?
I am
That's a
excited
little
about it.
weird.
Yeah.
They're not focus. They're not going to be focusing at all on the Chromebook space.
Well,
they are gonna, just not with this chip.
Just not with this chip.
Yeah,
They'll make another chip for Chromebook.
Presumably. I mean, were you were at the Chromebook Plus launch like a month ago or whatever?
Yes, I was.
Oh, you were there. Okay.
Yeah.
That was Intel and AMD only. But when we asked them what about Qualcomm, they said we're going to have an announcement soon, or Qualcomm's going to have an announcement soon.
And they didn't do it here.
They didn't do it here.
They
no.
didn't mention it here.
And by the way, I asked Kadar about that. He's like, they said they'd have an announcement from us.
Is this Lenovo? Who is this? HP? Who is this?
It was Google.
Google.
Saying that.
Oh, Google.
At the Chromebook
Google
Plus.
was saying at the Chromebook
Oh.
Plus, which is their step up tier, the higher quality of this
Got
is the
it.
known experience. There's
Man,
the
I
premium
miss
features.
the Chromebook. I'm still using my Chromebook. What is it? The Pixelbook, the original, the touchscreen one with
The nice one?
Yeah.
The Pixelbook that launched with
Yeah.
the Pixel 4.
So good. It's so good.
I miss
like they
good
just need
hardware,
smaller
like
bezels,
pretty
but
hardware.
It's so
I miss
good.
ambitious hardware in that
Yeah,
space. All those
I know.
Chromebook Pluses are going
Plus,
to be great
it
products, but
folded.
they're boring.
For
They
you,
are boring.
for you, it was a foldy all the way around.
Oh yeah,
And you like foldy.
yeah. I do like that. I appreciate a good
folding.
hinge, even though I don't
A
like
good
the
hinge.
butterfly ones less.
Yeah.
Rich, in the Q&A today, did I miss something, or did they say something about that they ran the benchmarks for the chip on a Linux machine?
Yes, that was weird.
Yeah, they said something about that. I was,
Yeah.
wasn't super
But that
sure.
means
what
they implied that they ran the benchmarks on M1 Linux or
Your
whatever.
M2. Yeah. I think that was against. I'm not sure.
That
Okay,
doesn't seem
yeah.
very
There was something weird about it, like
Yeah.
considering the fact that it's built.
I wonder
for
how
Windows.
much
For
faster,
Windows,
how much faster it would be running on
They didn't
Mac
have the
OS
drivers ready for
and-
Right.
Maybe. Who knows?
or I got the impression, I could be totally wrong, that they were trying to compare it to the M2 specifically.
Got it.
On the
Apples
same
to apples,
platform, right?
Apples to
Yeah.
apples
I see.
comparison.
Right.
But the M2 is not optimized for Linux,
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
right? So this chip should be optimized for Windows, and the M2 is optimized for Apple's platform. Like that's not
Yeah,
an apples
I
to
mean-
apples comparison.
We're going to get benchmark scores tomorrow. When
Yeah.
You get so we'll be able to check these things ourselves.
Will it be running on?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
They're like, here's Linux.
All these reference designs are definitely running Windows.
Yeah. So, in general, I think this is a big deal because I've been waiting for a while now for Windows on ARM to become a real deal. And because, ARM all the things is what I say. Like, they can put RISC-V and ARM in everything.
I feel like this is the last chance for them.
This
There's
is-
I
so
do.
many-
It was nice though to see Da Vinci
Oh,
get on
that's
stage.
that's a big deal.
For
It's a big deal.
for a lot of us who do video editing, seeing Da Vinci on stage saying it performs incredibly well, and then I said, "Where's Adobe saying
By the
that
way,
they're going to have
that's
the
why-
Adobe suite?" And that's a
why
bigger
I say,
deal.
But that's why I say it's a last chance for them, because Adobe was here last year saying they would have the entire CC suite,
And they don't.
Adobe was at the Surface Pro X launch in 2019
Not on ARM.
saying they would
They
have
were on ARM?
the entire CC
No.
suite.
Jesus.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adobe
See, this
on
is
ARM
what-
is not
this
a thing
what
yet.
I'm talking about. Like, even if Microsoft manages to give us good emulation, talk the OEMs into really being on board, we still need the software developers to.
Yeah.
Because what they were saying in the Q&A is that to take advantage of all the building blocks of that awesome, SoC, like the hardware acceleration for video processing and stuff, you actually need to code to that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Can't,
And this is where I see like Gen 2 being a more viable platform because
So tired of hearing that at every one of them.
I know.
Every single one of these.
no, but
Especially with the
exactly.
computer
But
chips.
that's
Yeah,
that's the
seriously.
point. Like they showed that sizzle reel of all these games that run really well, and
That are
the
presumably
question
going to
was,
run well.
the question was, are they running on ARM? And then the answer was not all of them, but they work well on
Yeah,
ARM.
they work
Ah.
well. Yeah.
And it was like, then why are you showing these things that are not optimized for your platform? Because I could show whatever I want.
It's
Right?
so interesting because it all comes down to like Cristiano said something really interesting. The CEO on
that?
stage where he was like, he made a distinct call out. Like, we are horizontally integrated. Like this is a horizontal approach to computing. We have all this variety. He didn't say this verbatim, but he said we have all this variety of manufacturers. Any of the AI models you want, you can run on our stuff. We are for, basically for everybody. And like drawing the comparison with the vertically integrated approach. And I'm like, 100% it is very satisfying from a nerdy perspective. You can do a lot more. The problem is you are then reliant on a bunch of partners to also do things well or to have the same ambitions. And that's a big challenge. I find it...
it's hard to get
big
the
relief that I don't have to do
manufacturers
that.
to deliver something that actually takes full advantage of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because they will pick and choose what they want and then not...
And
they'll fall short of giving us that great user
And
experience.
the big fault with their approach is that they'll do this and they'll rely on other companies to do this work. And when you come back and it's not done, it's like, well, it's not our fault. Like, no, you built this thing expecting them to do it. This is what you promised us.
Exactly.
So here's a question. What if, let's talk about Apple announcing that they're having an event on Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In the middle of this conference, kind of trolling a little bit here. This is my theory. My theory is Apple always planned to have an event on the 30th. And
They just chose to announce it today.
announce it here or yesterday because they thought, that could be disruptive. Maybe that's their way of trolling a little bit. But my other thing is I want to know, like, what if, Rich, this is a you question, what if M3 is just like freaking incredibly better even? Like,
There's
what now?
There's only so much better that M3 is going to be.
Really?
Right? I mean, the typical increase gen over gen for any
a 15 to 20% bump.
Okay.
Right.
So we're not expecting
Because the
magic.
M1 to M2 wasn't a huge leap.
No.
Right? Like, it was
As it
it was
shouldn't
a
be,
good
right?
leap, but
And
it wasn't revolutionary.
And if you look at single core Geekbench
Michael's like,
scores, you
whatever.
compare it to whatever Intel's got. Like, it went from in the 1700 range to the 1900 range, as it should. And I'm sure this one will go to 2100 or something.
Yeah.
What are we actually talking about when we talk about power? Like, I use an M2 Max product as, in I think the most demanding workload you can find, which is editing 4K video all the time.
Multiple
it was great.
streams and
the
everything.
M1 was freaking fantastic at that too. Like, how much
Right.
more power do you freaking need when you're Apple and you're already just absolutely dominating?
You're ahead of the
conversation?
competition.
Yeah.
No, and
Well,
it
maybe
comes
it's an
down...
efficiency thing. Maybe now battery life is 2 hours more,
Which it's like I can already do a transcon flight without a power and like editing video the whole time. It's like
we can. It's
all
amazing.
so good.
I know it's so good.
It comes out. It's the same thing on mobile though. Like, we keep seeing every generation, we're like, 25-30% more powerful or power efficient. But where are you actually using all of that power? You're not using it in video editing because there's kind of a limit to what you actually need, unless you're stacking like 15 layers of 4K videos, which we're not for what we're doing, right?
So, so then the question is the power needed for the AI stuff?
No, it's not even. It's like
Bread
for
and butter
gaming.
this
Like,
year.
if you're like, you want to max out the frame rates for gaming, and that's really the only thing that's ever going to push the system to the limit. So if you're not a gamer who's really interested of getting the very maximum frame rates on your device, it means nothing.
Right, just buy an Xbox. What are you doing?
Right. And then you're going to
let
get
the
30
PC
frames per
gamers hear
second,
you.
and you'll be fine. Like,
I'm sorry, Miriam. I just cost you half the audience.
No, I mean it's a legitimate perspective.
No, I was trolling. I'm sorry. But I mean, but the AI thing was huge at this thing, right?
Yeah,
We
so
gotta talk
let's
about
they
talk
that.
talk
about
more
that.
about AI
On
than
device-
anything else.
You remember it used to be 5G, 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 5G?
There was,
now they're
there was
like,
like two mentions of 5G.
this
and
is
then
like a
nothing.
mea culpa in my opinion, because it was like, oh yeah, you know what? That 5G promise of putting everything in the cloud, we can't do that. It's not working.
Yeah.
So now we're going back in the device, on device AI.
Yeah.
We can put it in the cloud, but the issue is you will always have
Your device
that,
with
that,
you.
that ping between the servers.
the latency.
The latency that will always be a minimum of 9 milliseconds, which doesn't sound like much, but it's definitely
lot.
noticeable when you're trying to do real-time interactions with things, right? The funny thing is, like, they talked about running Windows in the cloud yesterday.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can run Windows in the cloud and we can do all these things. And yet they're like, well, we have the power to do it on device. Why are we talking about Windows in the cloud? And then today they talked about this real-time avatar that's talking to you.
That was the
And-
most terrifying shit I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my
It
God,
was good.
it was
It
bad.
was actually good. But then they said, "Well,
It
you
was
don't
actually good.
You don't
Nick
want to.
Gray.
You don't want to run this in the cloud. You want to run it on device. And like yesterday, you talked about running Windows in the cloud. Your messaging
you don't
here
wanna
is
run-
all screwed
you-
up.
you don't wanna run
You want to
this
run
thing
an
anywhere.
operating system in the cloud, but
Windows in the cloud is a
avatar on
different use
device.
case, though.
It is.
That's a
different.
business use case.
Yeah.
That's
No,
that's
but
about
like
using the same
imagine
installation on
like
different
your
devices.
mouse across the screen and clicking things, and you have a 9 to 10 millisecond delay versus an
no.
avatar that
No.
you could just buffer
No interest
to
in
speak
that.
to you. Like what? Why are we actually doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we actually doing this? I don't know. Tagline for life.
Yeah.
Why are we
Nick
doing
seems
this?
about ready to retire. Yeah.
No, okay, so here,
I'm out,
here-
guys. It's been
Oh
great.
no, Nick, we lost Nick. So here's a quick question. I mean, obviously, X8's the big news. I think it holds a lot of promise, but in my opinion, I want to see the hardware. I want to see the software. I want to see the apps, but I'm excited because I want choices. I love my Mac. I've always been a Mac user. Probably will continue, but I do admit it that it's like kind of awesome to have choices. But what about the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 stuff? Hey, Adam.
Hi.
There's a
Will you join us?
I always wanted to be part of a cool cast.
You might want to sit
cool
next
pod.
to.
You can take my spot because I'm about.
You're about
I'm
to go?
out here.
All
Well,
right.
I'm out with you, so
Oh, that's right. We have.
I literally
have this thing out.
So before Christian leaves, I just want to, realize I didn't tell everybody. So Michael Fisher's here. Obviously, you guys have figured that out.
Yeah.
Maybe you figure out that Rich Woods of XDA is here, and Nick Gray of Fandroid, and then Christian of BGR, right? Christian DeLuca.
And others.
And you have to go. And it's
This
a
is just
cameo.
I got a couple
Cameo.
minutes.
Yeah.
It's a cameo by Adam Dowd. So do you want to, in that couple of minutes, tell people where they can find you?
Oh, I don't need a couple minutes. Just look it up.
Google me.
I'm around. Search on Twitter. Or
BGR,
What are you
everywhere,
doing?
right? You're
on
right.
X or
Get on
on,
thread.
on Threads. On Threads. That's right.
Yeah, half of the
See,
people say to get on
Instagram,
threads. Half people
Instagram,
say
and TikTok.
It's Seed Looper, right?
Talking about.
I
CDELOOPER.
think I changed it. I think it's
Alright.
Christian DeLupa.
Oh, it's
but
Christian DeLupa now.
whatever misspelling you do, it'll probably show up.
All right.
Yeah.
Fair.
There's not many DeLoopers out there.
No, there's not.
Well, Mr. Dowd cannot stay with us.
I have dipped a finger in the water though, so I can qualify for the pool cast.
Nice. And
That's
you got
right.
a nice, even coating of used suntan oil on your finger now. Congratulations.
Fantastic. So the next thing I want to talk to him, get a little bit more in depth with before we talk about glasses.
No, we talked about him enough.
Well, you think so?
Well,
Okay.
the other thing about them is that they actually sound much better than I expected they would. Because I had a
Yes.
demo for those yesterday.
Oh yeah, me
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they sound
Apart from the
superb.
camera being pretty good, the speakers are great.
Speakers are fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, a little spot.
And they don't look chunky. Like,
yeah, they
you know?
don't look too bad. Tom the tech chap about to throw my bag in the pool. Sorry about that, buddy. Just keeping it warm for you. What were you gonna say? Sorry.
I was just saying. So let's talk about 8 Gen 3 a little bit. Like what?
Yeah, what is there to
What is there talking about? 10% more efficiency, right? Is one of the numbers I saw.
harder, better, faster, stronger?
That's
What
right.
else
Like,
is
do we
there?
get-
the story
It's
every
the
year.
usual
Yeah,
upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you normally
it actually seems a little bit less.
it seems
than
less
the
is what I'm
usual
saying.
Upgrade.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the question I was going to ask at the Q&A that I couldn't ask because they cut off the questions.
Right.
And so if anybody at Qualcomm's listening, hi, I'd love to
Here
have.
comes Miriam. Turn off
I'd
the mic.
love to have, yeah, right. I'd love to have the answer of like, okay, so it's TSMC 4 nanometers right now. That's what they announced. But we all know there's TSMC 3 nanometers. Apple is using that on the what is it?
A17 Pro.
17 Pro? Yeah, that's it.
So from what I heard, though,
Are they gonna be
Apple
a-
bought all their
Yeah,
capacity.
but okay, let's say fast forward 6 months, right?
yeah.
Are we going to see a Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 3 that's 3 nanometer TSMC and get the same kind of like, oh my God, look, it's so much better than 8 Gen 1. Remember 8 Gen 1 to 8 Plus Gen 1?
That's true.
Yes.
So
I
who wants to bet? Who's
Yeah,
a betting
I'm not a
person?
betting
seems
man.
likely.
Honestly, Qualcomm's strategy for adding those plus generations has
Because they didn't do it this year.
They didn't do it this year. They've kind of toned it back. Like it used to be every year we were expecting that plus variant. Every year we got that plus variant for the last like 6 or 7 years. And then the last couple years, it's been on one year, off another. I think they're scaling back of let's push it as far as we can, as quickly as we can, and let's save it for the big reveal.
Yeah.
Because if you push that next generation, or half generation step up, right? Then you lose that big reveal the next generation. Like we'll come next year and we're like, well, it's only 10% faster than the Plus that you announced 6 months ago.
Well, next year is going to be the 8 Gen 4 is going to be Orion, right?
Yeah. And, but that's the thing, like it's a completely different architecture.
All right.
And so,
See you guys.
and so for those who don't know, Orion is the same CPU core as what we're getting with the Elite.
So that's a big
for
deal.
the mobile compute, which is completely owned by them rather than the core owned by ARM.
Yeah.
So it gives them full control rather than ARM having control over the upgrade generations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It also lets them be unique, right? Because compared to what everybody else is doing.
It's not MediaTek's version and Qualcomm's version of what ARM is doing, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the big news for me is obviously a bit more efficiency, but the on-device AI, everything's optimized for on-device AI, right?
Right. And what did we get? What did we get in terms of demos of use cases that
Image
actually
generation.
leverage that? So we got endless. You are correct.
Oh,
we got endless
endless.
demonstrations of, hey, we took a photo of something, but what if we just
zoomed out.
illustrated a bunch of stuff that might be around that thing in an imaginary universe?
Yeah, just a generative fill.
Like, I appreciate it for creative applications, like making YouTube thumbnails in various aspect ratios. I know David Kogan has done that.
Which I have done for
No, that's
with
really
Photoshop.
great. Yeah, I've done it too.
Beyond that, like, what is...
Unless you
what
are a
people
creative.
doing? Yeah, right. What are
The
people,
average user is never going to
you know,
use it.
people asking to like be like, hey, this photo is great, but what if we created an imaginary world where the photo frame was expanded?
And the other thing, the other demo on device AI that they showed us is like, basically like Google Assistant / Siri / whatever,
chatbot
but it's
thing, yeah.
offline. So like, what's so exciting about that other than you're
As a
offline?
technology
It's
demonstrator,
off-
it's interesting.
the
but
funny thing
beyond
is-
that, it's like,
The demo they showed today was offline, and then it said, well, now let me go online to this
Doesn't have to
website
get useful information,
and
right?
plug in this information into this travel website. I'm like, well, couldn't the website just have done that online? Like,
Yeah.
why did I need to do it offline?
So
Yeah.
these demos are what companies do when they don't know how you're going to use it.
exactly.
They come up with a bunch of...
It's the
High
ability
five,
without. It's the ability to
That's
do
so
something
true.
without the reason to do something.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Accurate.
No, it's true.
and it's interesting to see. I mean, it's technologically impressive,
Oh,
and it's
completely.
wild to see
So-
that happening locally on a phone. But
It's like having Google Assistant without an internet connection.
What
Like
if-
if you lived in a cabin.
so they,
Yeah.
they
If you lived in a cabin with no internet and you
Sure.
had Google Assistant and
Yeah.
still being able to answer your questions, that's great. But how often are you in that situation?
Also, that model needs to be updated from time to time. So if you're a hermit,
yeah.
like, you're not going to have the latest.
No, but like it can give you evergreen content versus live content,
I will
right?
say there was, in addition to the emphasis on on-device processing, there was a little bit of a touch on on-device sensing, which I did like. They were
Oh, yeah.
demoing that IR sensor from, forgot the company's
Yeah, but
name.
the problem is none of these phones are going to have that IR sensor.
Yeah.
Right, but it was interesting to see what happens because we've
Like-
added sensors to phones over the years, right?
Yes.
We've like phones, the hardware
The
evolves
Pixel
too.
device has
And-
a temperature sensor.
Right. So, but
Like-
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like when I don't care about sticking your phone on a cookie to see if it's stale or not, which is one of the demos we got.
Right.
But it was kind of cool to throw my phone on my arm and have it be like, yeah, you're 57% hydrated. You should probably drink some water.
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
like that one.
on stage they were just like, yeah, and then you could go buy some lotion with it. And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's it's direct sensing of the environment for like without having to go to the.
You're like,
cloud
I've
because
had
it's faster, it's
I've had
easier."
too many drinks tonight. I'm dehydrated. Maybe I should get 2 glasses of water before I go to bed instead of 3.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
the actual use case is like, yeah, there's somebody with a greater imagination than any of us who's going to make something out of it. I did enjoy seeing that. I liked seeing new capabilities woven into this.
No, I agree with you. And, like, remember back the OnePlus 8 Pro had the 2 megapixel infrared camera that give you those crazy pictures. They called it spectral, but basically it's like a normal camera. You remove the infrared filter and you get the crazy colors,
Yes,
right?
and another demo we got, her suggested use was having a personal smoke detector because this
Yeah.
IR sensor can analyze air quality.
Correct.
And that
Yeah.
actually got me to look up for a second. I was like, actually that's
Nice.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
personal air quality all the time without carrying a second device. Until now, you can get that. There's actually little devices you can buy. You put
Yes.
it on your tool, on your belt or something, or your backpack, and it tells you the air quality.
Yeah. Like I've done
You never know when the
reviews.
sky's going to turn orange.
Yeah.
Indeed. This year has taught us anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done reviews of the Apara air quality sensors. Like they have smart home sensors for like light sensors. They have air quality sensors, noise sensors, things like that. And it's great product, but then they're all individual little pucks that you have around your house, right?
Yeah.
Versus if you could actually have that in your phone or maybe your smart glasses or something like that.
You know what I
right?
find interesting is some of the demos they go back to are these like chestnuts they've been doing for as long as the Snapdragon Summit has been hosted.
Right.
Like, hey, so you know when you're shooting video and you want your phone camera to look like a $3,000 camera with really natural bokeh? Well, we're never going to be able to accomplish that. But look how close we can get. Oh, not very.
Not very.
I wish the video bokeh demos would stop. Like, it's just always
Well, also,
the worst.
like they showed off a video demo
It's so
of.
true.
They showed off a video demo of you capturing selfie video with capturing video from the rear camera at the same time.
Right.
But the selfie video blur
It's
or
masked.
remove the background mask. I'm like, you can do that with Instagram right now.
It just looks like,
Like-
but it looks like trash.
But from the demos that I saw with this,
Yeah.
like if you were standing in front of a green screen,
Then
sure,
works.
it
But
works.
otherwise, it's the same trash.
I saw like 5 different demos of like, no, there's still a tree behind me, and the
Yeah.
person next to me, his arm is there, but his body is not.
Right, and credit to them though, because that is a market that exists. That is a demand that exists because apparently on TikTok that's a thing. Be
It's a thing. On
I'm in
TikTok,
front of
on
I'm in
Instagram,
front of
yeah.
a low res screenshot of what I'm talking about, and I'm
Yeah.
shaking my phone around like.
What do you guys
God
think of
bless it.
seamless? Like, it seems like we've already had this all along. Like, why is it such a big deal? Like, Apple's done it, Microsoft's done it.
Refresh my
Seamless, you know, like the Honor thing where you drag a photo from a tablet to a foldable to a laptop.
Yeah.
Right. So it's their solution.
It's that.
Right.
So
it's
Yeah,
Apple's done it, and it's really good.
Google's done it. Kind
Google hasn't done it. No, like Google has nearby share, and that's
What
about it.
Can't you share the clipboard or something?
they want it to not matter who you buy your device from.
Yeah,
like,
but
you
it
don't have to buy
has
all
to be a
Samsung
Snapdragon
devices.
device.
Yeah, but
No,
it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be. They're
does it?
Anybody
it's an
can use
open
it.
source standard that they're
Oh.
making available
Okay.
to.
Right.
They are partnering with
I thought it
Microsoft.
requires some
No.
fancy
No,
hardware.
Partnering
No,
with
no, no.
Microsoft and Google.
It's an open source standard that they're creating,
Got
and
it.
it doesn't require specific hardware. It requires a software level that uses it. So it
Yeah.
will work with Windows devices as Microsoft is going to implement it into
Anybody can
Windows.
implement it. Apple won't.
yeah.
Apple won't.
Yeah.
No, so essentially it should give you that Apple.
another one of those fun
it should
things.
give you
Yep.
that Apple experience, but you can have a Dell laptop with a Samsung phone with
Right.
someone else's tablet.
Yeah.
And it will work across 3 different OEMs. So the idea is really good. The problem is it will not be a requirement for anybody to implement it, which means
Wait,
it
yes,
will
it is.
probably.
It's baked into anything with the 4 new chips.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's baked in as the capability, but they still have to enable it.
Okay.
There's no
Is there any reason they
requirement.
wouldn't?
There's no requirement for. I mean, they still have to build a software level to actually use it.
So if they don't want to spend the money,
If they don't want to spend the R&D to
Yeah, the
actually
development.
implement it, they don't have to,
right.
right? Like all these chipsets have 1,000 capabilities, and they only implement half of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they still have to put in the time and effort to enable it. In 5 years, sure, it probably will be there, but it's going to take a while before everyone like, okay, this is the
But it
bare
is cool.
minimum.
That is cool. Like again, we do keep coming back to the horizontal versus vertical thing. Like sometimes it's inescapable, but I do like that it's baked in at the chip level. Like I think that's a meaningful step forward for AirDrop like
Capabilities.
analogs.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the idea that somebody's creating something that everybody can use, and hopefully it becomes a thing. But right now, I feel a little like Qualcomm has historically, ever since like for 15 years now, I've been seeing Qualcomm try to bring in open source software solutions to make things more seamless, and they've all flopped.
Yeah.
Right?
So, but I mean, Google has Better Together.
Yeah,
I don't really know
That's
about
what
it.
I thought it was.
But that's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gonna use it. Microsoft Phone Link. They're partnering with these companies for this
Okay.
stuff. So
Yeah.
So here's another question. What about they have the S7 and S7 Pro sound chips, and what really stood out for me, and I'm kind of excited about, is
X-Band.
seamless transition between Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, low energy Wi-Fi, which means that so if you're in the office, you're on a phone call, and you start walking out of range of Bluetooth, it'll go over to Wi-Fi, and then it'll continue in the office, and
so
then
cool.
in the house too, right? If you're not in your office when your phone, or you've left your phone indoors, you're just outside, in the patio. Maybe your Bluetooth is a little short there. Now you
The
get
idea for me,
Wi-Fi,
I
right?
love the idea. The
But it's
problem
baked
is,
into the chipset, so that's the cool part about it.
the problem is, and it's not the problem. We've been accustomed to knowing if I get 15 feet away from my phone, my Bluetooth connection
Yeah,
is
so
going to be
nobody's ever
degraded.
going to use it.
So I automatically
Yeah.
just pick up my phone and walk to the other room. So it's one of those things.
That's such a hassle.
But like, I completely. It is a
I
hassle.
didn't
But
even bring my phone to the pool.
But
so-
we've taught ourselves over the years. I'm
No, I
like,
get it,
oh,
yeah.
I'm walking over here. Let me pick up my phone and walk. And so it's gonna allow us to be lazy again, as we should be. But we have to unlearn the habits that we have learned in order to make it work so far.
and we do, right? Like when you're maybe listening to music or something, and you say, "Oh, I got to grab something from my car," and then you're halfway there, and oh crap, I forgot my phone, and then oh wait, it's okay.
Sometimes
Right.
yeah, you
And
get
then-
there and you're like, no, so I can go halfway. I can go from my office down 3 flights of stairs, and halfway through my backyard, like 150 feet before my Bluetooth.
Yeah, my
connects.
Bluetooth is
like
really
Bluetooth
solid.
is
It's
actually
very good.
really good
I feel
these
like
days.
I would have
Yeah.
liked this feature a lot.
But here's
right? Like no, Bluetooth has
But
gotten so
the
good.
reason
would've
I'm
been
a little
great back when it
excited-
wasn't
The
possible.
reason I'm a little excited is because if you're doing lossless audio, which I do on Bluetooth,
That's
your
different.
range is halved, right?
No, it's not even half. It's
and
like line of sight,
well,
right?
it's bad. So what I'm trying to say is, for me, like having Wi-Fi kind of take over at that point would just give me that extra.
But would it still be lossless though?
Yes, because Wi-Fi is a much bigger bandwidth.
No, but like the question is like, are they actually yes, it's over Wi-Fi, but is their implementation over Wi-Fi really going to be lossless?
Because it's the same codec. It just switches over to another
Okay.
mode in the back.
I don't think
This
we've gotten
brings
enough
up-
information
Yeah, we
yet
don't know
as
yet,
as
right?
to know like
but I'm
are they
assuming
actually
it's just the transport changes.
This brings
right?
up an interesting thing about some of the metrics they were using to justify some of these features. Like I looked up occasionally from my notes or whatever, and one of the times I did so was when they were like, "Our data indicates," and I don't know what the exact number was, but it was like 65 to 70% of people are their number one consideration when shopping for
is high
It was
fidelity audio?
70%. It was 70%.
You guys are
I'm like 70% of customers don't even know what it is.
I thought the same exact thing. They said that, and I'm like, nobody knows what high fidelity audio
Exactly.
is. Like us
And then-
nerds
then
barely know.
there was another
and
one.
the
Sorry, Sasha, we love
70%
you.
Yeah, and there was another one during the AI.
Who's
portion.
doing this research?
AI is the number one deciding purchasing.
No,
factor
it
for,
is
like,
not.
enterprises and laptops. I'm like, it is
No, it's not.
Way.
You know what the number one purchasing factor for enterprise is? Price.
Yeah, of course.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
always price and
So-
support. And like
Also, but,
how
like,
many?
by the way, citation
10
needed.
years
I
of
could be wrong
support.
on this. It just doesn't feel like.
Yeah,
it.
look, I agree with you. We'll find out exactly how they're going to implement this, but I think it's interesting because I think some of the stuff that Apple is doing with the H chip or W chips or whatever is blending Wi-Fi,
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. No, like
And
the concept
it
of the
pays off,
technology
right?
and the problem is I don't think anybody's really
aware what's going
well.
on.
Everyone knows what happens when you walk away from your phone and you have a
Right.
Bluetooth connection, and you just don't walk away from your phone, right? Like that's an easy thing to solve,
Yeah.
and no one's gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, my world is changed now."
Right? No,
It's just gonna be another feature.
it's a nice,
set,
it's a
right?
nice feature to have,
Yes,
right? And if it's
correct.
baked into a lot of optics, whatever the Snapdragon sound stuff, great.
But one thing I mentioned to somebody earlier today was Qualcomm still has a very small market share when it comes
Yeah,
to
it's
Bluetooth
true.
audio. MediaTek dominates
They
that space
totally do. Yeah.
completely.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well,
yeah,
maybe-
like MediaTek
what
is
if-
the number one player within the Bluetooth.
What
Qualcomm's
if
got a
at
much
MediaTek
smaller market share.
Summit next time, like in 2 weeks or whatever it is, they start saying they have the same thing?
That's the fun thing, though, right? So
if MediaTek comes to the market and says we have this, it's a much bigger deal
100%,
than when Qualcomm
100%.
says it
Yeah,
because
I
MediaTek
agree.
is dominating
I
within
agree.
that space.
and MediaTek is also in TVs and smart speakers and all kinds of stuff that's around your home.
All the
So-
audio equipment
right.
is using MediaTek chips.
So when they have their own version of
It'll
Seamless,
actually be a better.
right. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, so I think we've talked about pretty much everything for Snapdragon Summit, have we?
Almost.
I mean, if you want to put
What's the
another
last
hour
thing?
into X Elite,
No.
do it.
Rich does.
I can. I could
does.
actually like if you guys want to go.
Michael, what you got?
I this is a little inside baseball behind the scenes, but for years, we've been coming to this thing since 2017 about, and almost every year they'll ask for feedback afterwards. And I said,
Right.
guys, almost every year you bring us to Hawaii, it's very beautiful. Disclosure, travel and lodging provided by Qualcomm. But
Yes.
Yes, they-
like, you bring us to Hawaii, you stuff us in a dark ballroom and make us listen to a 4-hour keynote, and then we never feel like we're in Hawaii, and that sucks. This year, oh my God, did they deliver? Folks, the demos that we got
The
were
demos.
very
Yeah.
informative in terms of the technology being demonstrated, but they were also held outdoors in the environment, and most of them were preceded by a 2 or 3 minute session where you
Cultural-
learned about Hawaiian culture. You learned a little bit about like this,
Maui
this
culture
area of the-
specifically.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, you're right. Maui
Yeah, I
culture
don't know if you remember the coffee
specifically.
demo, but there were
Absolutely.
there's no.
And I just, I
mean,
gotta
there
say,
was coffee. It makes
listen,
me
it
happy.
was
Maui
not.
coffee.
I want to
Maui
acknowledge.
coffee,
I want
right?
to, shut up. I want to acknowledge that it was not. It was not easy to implement. All right, and it was
Yeah.
not. It was probably not cheap to implement. And you know, they're going to get complaints from people who are like, "It was too hot. Why do we have to do this? Whatever. I just want to benchmark in a ballroom." But it was fucking fantastic. They deserve credit for doing that.
They really do.
100%
For
agree, because
thinking about it differently. That's
it was hot, and I was not happy that the demos were outside. But the only thing that made it worthwhile was I love learning about
dare
the
put
culture.
that on your feedback.
I love learning about like. We learned about the music. We learned about
Yeah,
food.
that was
We
cool.
learned
Yeah, it was
about
great.
just life in
It was
general.
really great. It
And
was so
even
great.
the way that they opened the keynote on the first day.
It was
Yeah.
obvious that they had thought a lot about how to
Yeah.
respectfully continue to have an event where something really horrible
Happened,
happened.
or
I think that'll
We're going to do some more in that space tomorrow. We're going to actually help out a little
I
bit.
think
as
that
far
I
as
think
know.
that made them realize though that this isn't just a place that they hold their event. Like this is part of their event now. Like you can't just go do it something like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good kudos to them for that.
Yeah. So, Michael, last thing for you. I don't know if you looked at the news.
forgot about that,
The
yeah.
the bracelet phone that like flexes around your wrist.
Crazy.
Lenovo just showed that.
At
I feel
Lenovo
like we
Tech-
saw this 6 years ago from them.
6 years ago, we saw that.
Yeah, we also saw a cardboard version of it from TCL.
Yes, we saw
So
a lot of
that's-
cardboard
okay, like,
versions of things from
Do you
TCL.
think this, like, you saw the sliding phone and we're still waiting, and
Yeah,
there was
I
a rolly phone from LG which we never saw, but
Yeah.
it did happen.
I think
Do
this
you
idea.
think it's coming? This could go.
I think this idea
right?
could actually work a lot
Okay.
better because you don't have to roll the device like the
Around the back.
stresses on the device will be less on the display rather. And also, I think that we will have an interim phase between smartphones and the next thing that is a smartphone that becomes a wearable.
I see.
And I think that'll be a little niche category, but I think it'll be a
Like,
category
remember
that
that
some people can
pendant
make a
thing
little bit of
that
money.
we
in.
had? What was it?
The front row.
Front row. Yeah, I still have mine somewhere.
Oh, that was
That
I got it
but
here
might as
actually.
well.
I think I brought it to this conference a few years back.
Another wonderful example of a POV video device.
exactly.
Like this,
Yeah. It was
this
very
category
cool.
does not die. So yeah, great times. Thanks for the little poolside pod. I did not know this was going to work out.
Absolutely.
But I think it was great.
I think it's going to work out. Hopefully, I
Well,
can have the audio just sorted out.
Yeah, did
Do you
that
guys-
app crash
Podcast
or
should
what?
be in
Do you
full.
guys-
This is
It didn't record at
this is the
all.
most relaxed I've ever felt at the end of a
Do you
podcast.
guys want to pimp your respective things? Mike, do you want to start?
Captain Two Phones on Threads and Mr. Mobile on YouTube.
Threads. I love it. I love
I ain't
it.
hanging out on
And
X
Rich,
anymore.
what
Come
do you want to talk about?
I'm at the Rich Woods everywhere.
on Threads.
And you
On
write for
Threads, on Threads.
and you write for xda-developers.com.
Yes.
Which doesn't cover smartphones anymore.
It doesn't cover
You've always been a PC guy, so that's not surprising.
No, that's what I was telling you yesterday. I was like, Rich comes in and stops coverage of smartphones on XDA of all places.
That was purely coincidental.
No, you had it planned from the very beginning.
Do it.
I actually didn't know that.
Oh, no?
You guys don't do mobile coverage anymore?
No.
No, there's your
No.
PC.
Nick, you want to tell people where they can find you?
You can find me at Nick M. Gray everywhere. Also on Threads. I am no longer on Twitter or X or. Well, I've never been, and I was just lurking for the longest
You're
time.
like, screw that.
But I'm also not on Threads either. I'm just lurking.
Jesus.
or-
Non-contributing
Does
zero
somebody want
over
a
here.
piece of the pool?
We're taking apart the full now. Or you can find me on Fandroid.
Great. And you know where to find me, folks. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL. Pretty much everywhere. X/Twitter, Threads, Insta, and Blue Sky.
Blue sky.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
What are we
Yeah,
doing?
apparently. I don't know.
What are we
Sure,
doing?
I'm not sure. I have some engagement there.
Zuck won this one. Just admit it.
Okay, fine.
He did.
fine.
He totally
I
did.
don't really need to be on Blue Sky, but I am. You know where the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com or all the big platforms. Google Podcast is no longer, but there's YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. So if you want to subscribe, check out these platforms and please rate or review the show if you can. YouTube, we're on youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast. There's unboxings, hands-on, that kind of stuff there. So please, you know how to use YouTube. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, all that good stuff. And then finally, I mentioned it earlier, Patreon. If you want to see a video version of this podcast of us hanging out by the pool, subscribe to patreon.com/tanker. That's patreon.com/TNKGRL. You get the video version ahead of time for a small fee, and you help me out. And there's other tiers, so if you don't want to pay for the video version, you can get access to Discord and a bunch of other stuff. So consider helping me out if you can. If you don't want to do it with Patreon, there's a PayPal link in the show notes. You can click through, buy me a coffee for $5, and help me out that way. And I want to thank our sponsor, Infineon. Infineon Technologies is a global semiconductor leader in power systems and IoT, and on a drive towards decarbonization and digitalization together with its ecosystem partners. The company just held their signature October Tech 2023 Silicon Valley event at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. And finally, I want to thank all of you all for being on my podcast, guys. Thank you
Thanks
so much.
for having us,
for
man.
having
And
It
thanks
has
to-
been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks to Christian as well, where to go. And stay tuned for another show next week, folks. And until then, cheers, everybody.